company we keep by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. Hi there, my name is Tercy Engelhardt, and I would like to welcome you to the Unreasonably Grateful podcast, Living in Grace by Choice. Every week I say welcome, and I mean it. I'm so grateful that you're here. We are a part of one another's journeys, however you got here, whether someone invited you, whether you found it by accident, no matter how you got here, I'm grateful that you're here. And it's my prayer that you'll hear something today that resonates for you and it helps you along on your own journey. So I call this life we're living a journey, and it's a pathway for all of us, actually, of recovering those broken off pieces of ourselves. Additionally, I share that the wisdom that I've gleaned over my now 39 years of recovery from dealing with sexual abuse and then an eating disorder, living as an addict from 16 to 36 years old. So that wisdom is universal. It doesn't belong to me. I don't have your answers. You do. But sometimes we have to dig through the rubble of our life to discover the pieces of those puzzles, the answers that take us onto that next step of healing, becoming more of who we were created and designed to be. And I believe that you were created to be amazing and miraculous and stunning and beautiful and kind and friendly and generous and all those things. So that's what this podcast is about. It's about sharing some tidbits of wisdom from my journey that are like little breadcrumbs for you, that perhaps you'll pick something up and it'll lead you on, helping you discover and be more of who you are. If there's someone you think would enjoy this podcast, invite them. It's always good to share. Sharing oftentimes get us out of our own little small existence and has us face sometimes some fears, which is always a good practice. And also, it's wonderful to be able to contribute to other people in the hopes that perhaps they'll find something that'll take them further along. On Tuesdays, I do individual sessions. It says so in the notes, and you can sign up on my website, tercyengelhardt.com, under the topic Work Together. I'm also getting ready to add a link to a full, I think it was an hour podcast that I did on, I think it's called something like Inspiring Lives or Inspiring People. And you're welcome to take a listen to that when you have a little bit more time. Okay, so this is the second half of the episode, How We Change. So last week, what I shared with you is you can't change on top of something, because whether you like it or not, whatever you develop is still sitting on top of something. And my experience now in my 70s is no matter how long ago that was, it will keep bubbling up to the surface until you've done the work to resolve that for yourself. And so I encouraged you to go back at your life and look at places where there's what I call an incompletion. There's something that's still like a splinter embedded deep down that's still egging you on a little bit, pops up from time to time. Maybe you even get present to it in the dream state, or you're driving along in total silence and all of a sudden there it is. Or you're in a new relationship and something about an old relationship comes up. Or you notice where you're triggered, where you are reactive instead of proactive. And if you dig in a little bit, you discover that it's connected to some past hurt, disappointment, sadness, wound, something like that. So what I asked you to do was just go through and identify those places and then look and see what you can take responsibility for, because we can always take responsibility for something. Rarely are we 100% complete victim. And if you listen or you, what do you do on it? Oh, you follow on Instagram, the Unreasonably Grateful Instagram. I've been giving little, little clues or prompts throughout the week to kind of aid you in that process. And I'll continue to do that. So if you're interested, you can look at the Unreasonably Grateful Instagram, and there'll be some stories or posts that will support you. All right, so you've done that work and you've looked to see what you can take responsibility for, and perhaps you've written a letter or you've called someone. Maybe you've already apologized, or maybe you have forgiven yourself. Whatever it is, you want to clean up those kind of little pitfalls from the past. And then this week, we're going to talk about an aspect of how we change, which is how do we shift our environments. So I want you to consider that we are the conversations that we engage in. And it's easy to see that. We just went through this whole pandemic and all that, which has created divisiveness in a lot of people's lives. And you can see that, wow, the conversations that we engage in dictate a lot of the experience we're having. Now, all the algorithms know that. They're sending you information to keep you engaging in the conversations that they see that you're interested in based on what you search, what you like, who your friends are, who's gets close to you in proximity, and what their ISPN is, and all that. Like, it's well known that the conversations we engage in actually dictate and determine our experience. And as I said in the description of this particular episode, when we were kids, our parents wanted us to hang out with the good kids. Why? Because they know that we become like the environments that we're in. We become like those we hang out in. I can remember if I hung out with a friend that my parents didn't really appreciate, they would always make some comment when I would come home about, oh, now we have to kind of unprogram you to how we live in our household because you've been visiting somebody else. Also, in recovery, we see this. People leave a family of origin or a particular environment where they're struggling, perhaps with an addictive or some kind of quality, some kind of habit. We put them in a different environment called a rehabilitation, and they do fine. And then they go back and they relapse because we are a part of that network of conversations and actions that we exist inside of. So, just like I told you about my friend who was a professional clown and became a marathon runner, we have to do the same thing. We need to change the environment we hang out in. So you may want to find some new friends. You may want to speak up if the community that you're engaged with gossips. You may want to speak up about, hey, I have a commitment to not gossip. If you're with people who are always getting into trouble or breaking the law, you may want to shift the environment that you're in by creating or selecting a new environment. And you'll pick up the patterns and the habits of that new community. Now, if you don't have a community that inspires you, you don't know where to find a community that inspires you, I'll give you some suggestions. And it may be that you're the one that creates it. You may start to create. Maybe you want to start a book club. Maybe you want to start a prayer group. Maybe you want to start a group that walks together, or hikes together, or swims together, or goes and sees, I don't know, museums or movies that you talk about, or there's so many ways that you can create some people who have a similar interest. I know we had a person living on our farm who went to a spinning group where she learned how to spin wool, sheep wool. There's so many things, and she loved the people. She loved those ladies. We also have a friend who has a daughter who really wanted to and felt called to build guitars, and she went and hung out with much older people who were guitar builders, and now they're kind of bringing her up and going to pass that business on to her. So, you want to find yourself a new group, a new community, or create a new group or a new community that brings out the best in you. and switches up the conversations that you're engaging in or the habits or patterns that you have. So, my friend who went from a clown to a marathon runner, she started to eat with the people who were runners and noticed she ordered differently when she was eating with them. The restaurants they chose to go to were different than the restaurants that her clown buddies went to. So you start to take responsibility not just for yourself, but for where you put yourself, where you place yourself, how you connect with other people. What's the source of your connection? And you want to begin to kind of cast out a line and start to build connections based on what you're committed to, based on what you're passionate about, based on what matters to you. Okay? So that's what I want you to do this week. That's the big step of how we change is put yourself or create for yourself an environment that's conducive to who you are created and desire to be. Okay? And I'll put some prompts in my Unreasonably Grateful Instagram. So pay attention there, and there'll be some prompts that'll support you in this process over the week. And I'll look forward to seeing you right here next week. Thank you so much, and see you then. Have a beautiful week.